Hello everyone, welcome to Carpo's Cozy Corner. Today we're going to talk about OCD, or Obsessive-compulsive disorder. Sometimes people have OCD and don't even know it. I think we all have OCD to one degree or another. But I know I have it to some degree because I just can't sit still. And when I get really into something, I get really into it. I look at OCD as being stuck in a cycle, but let's see. We all have these cycles that we get into where we're into something. They might be years long, or we might be, whether it could be a religion, or like maybe you're into sewing, or maybe you're into working on cars. You go through a long phase where you're really into that, and then after like 10 years you fade out and you're just not interested anymore. You're like, oh yeah, I used to work on cars. I used to do this. I used to make furniture. I think OCD is kind of like oh yeah, I used to do that yesterday. My brother has it just like I do, but he is to the point where he's very involved in, he was really into golf for a while, and he tried to get me to golf with him forever. And I kept telling him I just don't like golf. I think that golf courses are a waste of space. I'm very opposed to golf just because of the types of people that associate with it in America, although I know that the origin of the sport was totally different, but that's not what it is today. Anyway, it was beyond that. It was my lack of interest in wanting to go hit a ball around like that and go ride around on a cart to get it. And he was so obsessed with it. After months and months, I told him, why don't you try frisbee golf? Because I'd be into that. I like frisbee golf. It's fun. He calls me back like a month later, and he's totally obsessed with frisbee golf. And this has been going on for like a year now. He sends me pictures of all his frisbee while he's tossing his frisbee, or like pictures of all his frisbees, different weights and everything. And I think it's awesome. And I know he probably wouldn't admit that he has OCD, but when I see it in him, I see it reflected in me, and that's why I'm mentioning him. I get very into something, and I'll be, almost obsessive about it, and it's not like I'm devastated if I don't get to do it or anything. It's just like it's what I'm really, really super interested in it. For a while, I was really into like conspiracy theories and stuff, and I had dug so deep. I had dug myself into a hole where I thought that the whole sky was going to collapse. And I realized that was my OCD, that was my attaching to that whole fear factor. And I went to the opposite end of the spectrum a while back, where I thought that everything was perfect, that I could like think my way out of everything. And that was almost another obsession. I was really into reading and learning about certain particular subjects that would keep my mind off of the negativity. And it was almost like leaning towards another side of it, because I was so sick of hearing all the negative things. And now I'm just in the middle. I'm balanced. I try to keep myself just kind of floating from thing to thing. I go through these cycles where I'm into something, and then I'll get back into it, say for a month, then I'll be back into it for a week, and this will go on and on. And right now, the thing that got me thinking about it was the internet, because somebody made a video I was watching the other day about where they were mentioned how the internet television is destroying us because of what it does to our brains, and how it separates it does something to the hemispheres of our brains where it does all kinds of stuff, but it's kind of like, it's an addiction just like everything else. But, watching television releases dopamine. Well, everything does. Shopping does, driving for some people. But television does it for hours on end. It's like a synthetic high. So I thought about how I've seen so many people online talking about this, like how bad TV is, kill your television, television's horrible, television's destroying us, television's all biased. And then these same people are spending 10 hours a day on the computer. And nobody mentioned anything in that whole video about the computer. In the comment section, I went to mention it, and somebody already had, saying, hey, what about PCs? These things. And nobody wanted to respond to that because everybody who's looking at this video is on a computer. And I think that for me, they say that when you get up in the morning, you should totally avoid going to your computer. You should get involved in your daily tasks and stuff. Set aside a schedule and a time to do things. An amount of time you can spend on the computer. And it's just like when you start writing down your finances to see what you spend money on. It can be depressing. I mean, I spend too much money on altered states of consciousness. That's just my thing. It's not even altered states. It could be just caffeine or kratom or weed or tobacco, whatever it may be. Just things to fulfill that obsessiveness. And that's what it is. It's my OCD that gets me to do drugs. And I'm a happy person, but I can't find the ultimate solace in complete peace and quiet and comfort. Like to spend a complete day by myself and not think about anything except just being. It's really hard to do. And I always feel like I'm on to the next thing, jumping around. So the computer is a drug, and it's a drug that I'm going to start setting a timer for myself right next to the computer. I'm going to have a stopwatch, and every time I go onto the PC, I'm going to click on it. I make it a point not to check my, to try to go in the morning and answer my comments and whatnot. But sometimes I can't. I mean, I can't answer them all. But then, and sometimes I don't even answer some of them because there's so many. But then other times I go and I click on there every 10 minutes to see, okay, who's responding now. And it just depends on what phase my mind's in. And my mind goes crazy, And sometimes I consume too much caffeine, and I gotta say that's. For other folks who have OCD to any extent, consuming any type of stimulant is not good for that condition. And I know that when I consume less caffeine, I do a lot better. But it is what it is, right? And after learning what the television has done to people for so many generations, and how easily people can be manipulated by even movies and television, which they know isn't true, it tells them that this is what teenagers are really like. It tells them that this is how people really think. This is how rich people act. This is what is really important to you. And generations of people were slowly convinced that that was the reality of the world, was on television. And now they're doing the exact same thing with the internet, except for people for some reason think that that's okay, since it's free enterprise and that it's free media, that it's okay, that it's legitimate, that everything that they hear and everything that they read is true. And it's devastating because I see so much fear and so many things that aren't even necessary, and that causes more obsession. And the compulsions can become, overwhelming to knock people down and to tell people they're wrong, and so those are just some thoughts on that subject of OCD. I think that many of my subs could relate to me. A lot of people I know, I can see it in people, and even if they can't see it themselves, because I have it. So it's cool. Learn to live with it. It's just kind of like any other. Obsessive-compulsive disorder comes to an extent with a high metabolism, I believe. This is just a theory, completely on my part, but the people that I've noticed that tend to be the most intense, the most animated. Like when I have conversations, I once in a while meet a person that's as animated and into it as I am, and we're just talking over each other and learning and discussing stuff, and if they're really into something, it seems like most of the people who are like that have a really high metabolism, or they don't eat a whole lot of food. Like they tend to be the kind of the people whose body really produces stuff fast. I mean, I produce drugs fast. Like for example, I'm usually the first guy to get high when we take psychedelics, and first guy to for anything to kick in that I take, I guess. And I process things really fast, and I think maybe that has something to do with OCD, but I'm not sure. Anyway, namaste, everyone. Have a good day.